The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to this It's Learning webinar, Key Steps for a Successful Online Learning Protocol. My name is Tom Shoemaker. I'm the CMO at It's Learning. And just by way of introduction here, this webinar is being recorded, so please be aware of that. We will provide this webinar as well as many other resources after the fact. Just to start off, before I introduce our speaker, it's clear that we find ourselves in a pretty unfortunate situation, but at It's Learning, we're really committed to helping educators and students weather these times. And this is regardless of if you're a customer of It's Learning or not. Our intention here is to give you some very practical guidance and tips about what is really top of mind for all of us. And that is, how do we keep our students safe, and how do we implement a remote learning protocol? So today we'll be hearing from Rachel Riggio. Rachel runs the customer success department here at It's Learning. She was an educator for more than 20 years before joining It's Learning. She's got firsthand knowledge of how to quickly and effectively set up an e-learning program. And she's helped many schools in the US do just that. In fact, we're going to hear some tips both from Rachel and from those schools directly as we get into this. Before I hand it over to Rachel, a couple housekeeping tips. There'll be a Q&A session at the end, but you can submit any questions you have along the way in the question panel, the box you'll see at the top right of your screen, and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible. And as I said, you'll receive a recording of this as well as many of the resources after the fact. All right, and with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are viewing this webinar around the world. Today, hopefully you will get some nice hands-on actionable tips for developing an effective online learning plan for your school should that need arise. This webinar is for you if you are at the point where you must implement a remote learning program ASAP and you need some guidance to help you do that. This is also for you if you're still in research mode and the possibility may be coming that you'll have to turn to a remote learning educational model, and you just want to hear some of the key success factors in doing that. By the end of this webinar, you will have a set of steps to follow to establish a remote learning plan for your district or organization. You'll have a set of actions to execute to create this environment for your students and teachers. You'll hear from a couple of districts that have had success with doing this over multiple years for a variety of reasons that required them to shut down the brick and mortar version of their schools. And then you will gain access to some resources that will be at your fingertips for you to embark upon this endeavor. So in the immortal words of Alexander Graham Bell, before anything else, preparation is the key to success. And over my many years of experience doing this with districts, preparation is absolutely key, and thinking through all those different eventualities that could come up and addressing those so we're ready to take them on. So preparation is the first part. Then comes the action part. So knowing is not enough, we must apply. And being willing is not enough, we must do. So we have plans to make plus actions to take. And in doing so, we can create a very successful, sustainable remote learning environment for students, whether that's a couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months. So when we think through the plans that we're going to make for this, we think of them as falling into three major buckets. The first bucket is a big one. It's the technology piece and the access piece. And we'll dig into that a little more in just a few minutes. And then we've got to think about the second bucket, the curriculum and instruction. What are we delivering to our students and how are we doing that? Again, we'll dig a little deeper in a minute. And then there's expectations and communication. The expectations for each stakeholder in this process, and how are we going to clearly and consistently communicate those expectations. So digging into piece number one, the technology and access. When these students leave your building, they leave that brick and mortar classroom, do they have access at home or on a device? Do they have the Wi-Fi access? Do they have the data plans, the tablets, the phones? Or do you have a district? I'm working with one right now that has the ability to send devices home. They've already deployed Chromebooks to their students for this. So thinking through, what does that technology access piece look like? And when you identify those students that may not be able to have this access at home, how do we address those students? Depending on the scenario, and in a global health crisis like we're experiencing right now, we may not have the opportunity to get students to public libraries or local hubs or something like that. We may have to think through another process. For instance, do we hold those kids and wait until they get back to school and give them so many days to complete that work? Do we download materials and send them home? So we have to think through, address those students and their issues so they feel comfortable, and we lessen what might be their angst or their parents' angst. We have every base covered. And then we need to think through, what is our technology access troubleshooting plan? There needs to be a plan in place for those eventualities that occur where a student may not be able to log in, we may not get access to certain content. So we need to put a plan in place whereby those end users get their issues and obstacles resolved as soon as possible. And that is part of what the district will decide on how to do that. So that's our first piece, ensuring we've got the technology in place and the access in place for our students. Then we have to think about the curriculum and instruction. And when we move from a brick and mortar situation where we have our students sitting in front of us to this virtual world, the nature of instruction changes. So that delivery of instruction is going to be a bit different. And we need to think through how that looks and the consistency of it. And we want to at least be consistent within levels, elementary, for example, secondary, for example. We need to think through how those lessons look, that they should be relatively short and the content should be chunked for easy access for the students. We want lessons that are inviting and as engaging as possible, employing the use of video, the use of interactivity, the use of sound. And more than ever, we want to create lessons that foster cooperation and collaboration, especially if we're in a situation where students might be quarantined or students might feel in isolation in some way because they're not with their normal class in their normal building. So there's many tools in the It's Learning platform that can foster that cooperation and collegiality amongst the students and the teachers, and we want to make sure that our lessons incorporate all of those. Incorporated into your webinar package today, you will get a teacher checklist, and it's a fairly simple checklist. You can feel free to embellish it as you want. And basically what it does is it focuses on the use of the It's Learning Planner, which is a wonderful tool in a situation like this because it can keep everybody in lockstep with what they're supposed to be doing. For instance, you might title your plan school closure lesson plan for 3/19/2020, if that's the first date that we've shut down. And then there's a checklist. Do I have the date provided? Do I have a description? And we need to remember, if we're not seeing the students in front of us, we have to be very careful to give a very clear description on what's expected of our students. We want to make sure the students understand what is to be submitted, what is to be viewed, what is to be submitted to the teacher. We want to include all of the resources and activities that the student needs to be successful. Are there files? Are there links, tests, discussions? We also want to make sure we've notified parents and guardians that these lesson plans are in place. And this will be part of the district plan. How are we going to do that? Are we going to do mass messaging? Are we going to use Outlook, Gmail? Are the parents part of It's Learning already that they will receive an It's Learning message? We want to ensure that there are office hours enacted. So again, as a district or organization, you will think through that piece. Will there be set office hours for the teachers, or will the teachers simply be available during the school day as necessary? Also on this teacher checklist is a bit of a tip sheet on how to develop these lessons, keeping them 20 to 30 minutes in length, keeping them interactive and engaging, not creating lessons that require printing of materials, as families may not have access to do that. And also thinking through if there's co-teachers and special populations, that those co-teachers are working with the primary teachers to modify as necessary for ESL students, special ed students, gifted students. So this checklist is a piece of this webinar package, and you will have it at your disposal. Bucket number 3 is the expectations and the communication that's going to go out to your stakeholders. And I can't emphasize how important this piece is, that the teachers understand what they are to be doing with the e-learning days. Something as simple as what time every day should the lessons be posted and what should those lessons look like. The expectations for the students to access the LMS daily to complete their work in a timely manner. What role do the parents and guardians play? They're supporting their students, they're supporting their teachers in these endeavors. If there are community members involved, and in this situation there may not be, where community members are involved in helping students get the work completed as well. Most important thing is everyone involved needs to know what's happening at all times. And since it is a fluid situation, if things are changing, that communication is consistent and ongoing. So in order to pull this off, you need a team in place. And typically we think of a central authority or district team, and then of course our school teams. And we think of representatives from the following departments at least, and you may want to include more. We want to have a technology representative, and that would be the bolts and wires people, the hardware people. So if we are deploying, for instance, Chromebooks, I have a district deploying, or if we are deploying mobile hotspots or something like that, if there's any hardware involved, we want a person in place to be able to help us with that piece. We want an instructional technology representative in place that's going to help those teachers design those quality lessons to give the most learning impact for the students. We need a curriculum and instruction representative available because we are conducting business as usual in a virtual space. Eventually, we're still going to have to conduct state testing and of course testing, so that curriculum needs to be delivered with fidelity. You'll need a student support representative to make sure that all of your populations are represented, those gifted students, those ESL students, those special ed students. Very important to have a student information system representative because there will have to be some sort of an attendance policy developed. With the schools that I have worked with, they have created a policy by which so many online learning assignments or online learning days equals 1 attendance day, for example. Whatever that policy is needs to be created and pushed out by the student information system. And then of course we need our PR folks and our communications folks to make sure we have a consistent message to everybody involved, and those messages are ongoing and updated as necessary. So at the minimum, on your district team, that's what you want. On your school team, you're going to want your principal or headmaster, your assistant principal or assistant headmaster, absolutely a data or attendance clerk to carry out the attendance policy that you decide. We want counselors, at least a counselor available to assist students and teachers with transitioning to this type of learning space. And then of course our department heads or our grade level chairs, so everybody knows exactly what is expected of them and their role in this remote learning space. And then a media specialist is typically worth their weight in gold because they have access to digital resources, understand how to access those resources, and are truly a wealth of information for folks when they go into this space. So we think through the plan, we've got our thoughts percolating on what we're planning. We have to take some action. We have to take some action centrally at the school level, and each role has some action to take as well. So when we think about our central action, and that's that central authority or district, we need to convene our team. And because of the fluid nature of the situation currently globally, we might have to convene this team fairly quickly and create the documentation explaining those 3 pieces of the plan: the technology access, the curriculum and instruction, and the expectations and communication, we'll draw up that plan fairly quickly to get us rolling along. And in this plan, key to all of this is to make sure everybody has clear expectations and knows exactly what we're doing with this. And then training documentation is essential, whether that's video, hard copy, or both. For instance, in a scenario such as a district where middle and high school uses itslearning every day, all the time, this is probably very typical for them, business as usual. But perhaps we're now bringing elementary along because we've shut down our campuses. We want to make sure that we support those elementary folks with whatever they need to get up and running as quickly as possible. On the school side of it, it will be very similar to the central piece. However, you may need to modify your school plan based on your specific building needs, and that's just fine. Now let's think through our actions by role. If we take a peek at admins first, there are different types of admins that we'll be dealing with. We'll be dealing with those admins that are school-based. That might be the principal, that may be the assistant principal. But we're also going to be dealing with folks that are itslearning admins. They're dealing with the day-to-day pieces of itslearning, kind of in the weeds, getting itslearning ready, making sure it's up and running, make sure that all the users can get in, make sure all the content is viewable. So for school-based admins, their job really is to ensure that there's clear communication to the staff, students, parents, on what our expectations are for these e-learning days, no matter how many we have, whether it's a week, whether it's a month. They want to support the teachers and students in their online teaching and learning. Now for the itslearning admins, that's where we come in. Please contact your local key account manager, your project manager, or if you need to, support.itslearning.com. We are your partner in this and at the ready to get you rolling without you missing a beat with your students. Now, if you're a teacher or a lecturer, your job is to create those lessons based on the expectations that your district sets forth for e-learning days, that you hold consistent office hours so your students know you're there for them and they feel comfortable and know it's business as usual. You want to make use of any meeting, conference, discussion tools to stay engaged with the students. And this is really crucial in a situation that we're in now, so people feel connected, remain connected, and feel that collaboration within the virtual space. We also want to encourage group projects to ensure that connectedness. And there are many tools in itslearning that can foster group projects for students. And of course, always want to provide timely feedback to our students so they feel that the work that they are doing is important and measured and assessed, and they can continue on their learning path. For our students, their job is to access the LMS daily, to complete all their work on time and satisfactorily, and to communicate with their teacher immediately when any issues arise. And then for our guardians, parents, mentors, of course, they are monitoring their students, communicating with teacher as necessary. And as everybody knows their roles and fulfills their roles, this will be a successful learning environment for all. So one of the big pieces that I feel is necessary is a bit of a test drive for your online learning days. Now, we're running up against some time crunches and people are going to have to enact these quickly. So typically, we like to plan an online learning day where we run through the online learning protocols. This may not be possible at this point. We may be able to accomplish a half a day. If time is a real crunch, if we can at least get a period or an instructional segment where students can practice their online learning protocols. And if we think back to that model I used earlier, where middle and high uses this all the time, but this is really a new foray for elementary, we want to take some time, test the ability for those students to log in. Do their credentials work? Can they log in? When they log in, do they see the content? Do they know how to navigate the system and know the workflow? Are you as a teacher able to answer any student questions that might come up? And we really just want to provide confidence for the students and a level of comfort that it's business as usual. We're just doing this in a virtual space. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to at least take a small amount of time to test out the protocols for your online learning days. So let's take a moment and learn a few lessons from some of the districts that have done this successfully. Forsyth County, Georgia is one of our districts here in the United States. It's a relatively large district who oftentimes experiences snow and black ice events where we are closed for sometimes a day or two. It has been up to 5 days that we've been closed. Forsyth has learned some lessons along the way. They feel that obviously the consistent use of the platform throughout the year is very beneficial when we move to a remote space. For them, that was the use of the planner. The planner made everything consistent and optimized the use of the platform across the board. They feel it's very important, as I've already spoke about, to identify and address students who don't have connectivity at their home. And depending on the scenario, how we handle this will be different, but we just need to make sure we handle it in some way that the students know that everything will be okay and that they'll be able to complete their work or catch up with their work if they need to. One main caveat from Forsyth that they ran into is do not try out a new learning platform on an online learning day. For example, don't send students to Padlet if they have never used Padlet before. Use pieces of content, use systems that the students are familiar with. And then, of course, a mock online learning day during the school year prior to an event. And as I said, because we're in a time crunch now, we may only be able to do a period or an instructional segment, but this is crucial to make sure we've headed any obstacles off at the pass. Another school district that has done e-learning days with great success is Columbus, Indiana, Bartholomew Consolidated. They had an extreme flooding situation back in April of 2018 that required them to be closed for several days. And they were able to have great success with e-learning days. We also have a recent story in Bartholomew where one of their elementary students was stuck in India because his mother could not get her visa. So it ended up 3 months down the line that this student could not come back to school. So he used remote learning in It's Learning to stay up in lockstep with his class, never missed a beat, showed back up in class and was ready to keep going with students. Bartholomew has been very gracious to provide us with many of their materials that they use with their population. These are all links to the information in Bartholomew. The first one is a website for parents, students, and families to keep abreast of the situation as it evolves and to have those resources at the fingertips that they need. They also have a staff website, and it's very important to them and to all of us for the entire staff to be up on what's occurring. That's everybody from food service workers to custodial workers to secretaries to counselors. Everybody needs to know what we're doing with these e-learning days, and the staff website for Bartholomew keeps them up to date. They've also provided a training slide deck that they use with their teachers to train them on how to create the best possible e-learning experiences for their students, and they've given it to us here. They've also given us a sample login document for their students that they send home with them to make sure the students have their usernames, their passwords, all the credentials that they might need to access any materials that they require. So thanks to Bartholomew for that. So as we recap and we think through our plan and think through our actions, you will have a starter kit, and you'll see the URL to go and grab your starter kit to get planning. The 3 major components of that plan is to really understand your technology access situation and make any accommodations necessary for the students. To make sure we're modifying our instruction accordingly, and to really establish clear expectations and a tight communication plan so everybody knows in what direction we're moving. And then we need to act upon this plan. From that central location, we want to make sure to set expectations. We have the ability to learn from others. We have Forsyth, we have Bartholomew, you have It's Learning as your partner. You have the ability to take a quick test run to make sure we've checked on logins, checked on content, workflow, navigation. If something occurs during that test run, we then have the time to take some corrective action before we go live. At the school level, we need to understand roles Everybody's roles, students, teachers, admins, parents, mentors. And we might need to modify whatever the district plan is as needed for that school building. Teachers need to develop and conduct quality e-learning experiences for their students. Students are at the ready to access the system daily, to complete their assignments, to communicate with their teachers and other students as necessary. As parents, we're ready to support students and support teachers. And for our It's Learning admins in the system that we work with on a daily basis, please do not hesitate to contact us as your partner in this. We are at the ready to assist you with anything you need to develop a remote learning experience that keeps our students safe, keeps them healthy, and keeps them learning. Thanks for listening. And Tom, I will go ahead and open it up to questions.
That's great. Thanks, Rachel. So just as a reminder, if people have any questions, the best course of action here is to type them into the question panel. In the meantime, I shared a link in the chat field. And just to give you a sense of that, you're actually going to be getting a few things. One, there's an online kit that we've made available already. So that, if I can just share my screen here, I will show you that kit. Is that displaying, Rachel?
I'm still seeing my screen, but...
Okay, well, perhaps you can go to that link.
Is this the starter
It's the
kit?
link I just put into the chat.
Oh,
it's
gotcha. I sure can. Here I go.
Great. So if there are any questions coming in, that's great. We'll get to those. But in the meantime, you can go to this online remote learning prep kit. If you just scroll down a little bit, Rachel,
I sure can.
you can see a few of the different things that we put there, checklists and different kits and what are some of the steps that you ought to consider. And we will continue to provide information to both our customers and prospective customers and really anyone out there in education. And as a reminder, you'll get a recording of this webinar and you'll get access to the other resources. We'll provide a handout, a PDF of the slides, and all of the resources are linked from within that. So you have this web page, you'll get the recording tomorrow, and you'll get the PDF of the slides as of tomorrow. So let's just take a look, see if we have any questions. Yes. Okay, so a couple different things here, Rachel. You ready?
Sure.
All right, so first question here. In your experience for conference calls and students sharing, what is the best tool to use?
So, there's a variety of different types of meeting tools out there. Obviously, It's Learning does have its own conference tool where you can pull in, I think I've pulled in 10 to 25 students on a video type chat, up to 50 in a text type chat. But you also have those tools out there like, Google Hangout, Google Meets, Zoom, Big Blue Button. There's a variety of different tools that can be used.
Okay, great. Let's move on here. Next question is, I think, identical. What tool would you suggest for a live online session with pupils? I imagine your answer would be the same.
Yeah, very similar. Yep.
Yep. So next is a request. Could you please demonstrate how to create a hand-in assignment where the students can hand in videos? I think that,
Sure.
well, okay.
I mean, I can if it's time to do it. I certainly can.
Well, let me just keep going through these. How about
I'll get ready.
Yeah, get ready.
Yeah.
But
I'll get ready.
meanwhile,
At your
we'll
service.
keep going here. Can its
Yep.
learning be used for after-school programs?
Certainly. Yeah, you can develop, we've developed either through the community group tool, your art club, your journalism club, your, football team, your band club, or even courses if you want a more academic feel. But absolutely, you can develop those virtual spaces where students and teachers can collaborate together.
Great. What would be your advice if schools aren't fully engaged with its learning yet, but might need it soon?
Yeah, so we've actually been talking at length about this and what we feel is probably the best way to do this, and we're organizing and systemizing this right now, is to develop a series of open webinars where folks can come in and virtually in a virtual space, and we can do kind of a quick training, if you will, on how to get up and running with the basics of its learning with your students, whether that be creating simple assignments, discussions where teachers and students can work together, delivering
Yeah,
tests, whatever that might be.
and I would
Yep.
also say, just continue to watch this space. Anything that we do and provide in that area will make front and center on our website, itslearning.com. And that website, there are country versions of that website. So regardless of where you are, you'll be taken to the right place, and we'll provide tools for that, and easy ways for you to get in touch with us for exactly that purpose. Okay, there's another question about a demo. I think for folks that are asking those, that's great. I think for now we'll proceed through the rest of the questions here. If we have time, we'll try something. If not, we'll circle back with you and arrange that.
Absolutely.
Here's another one. What kind of features in its learning will be useful in remote lessons, other than, let's say, posting text messages and assignments?
Yeah, so there's a variety of tools, and I've really kind of, when I've used it in a remote situation, I taught absolutely remotely for a while. So learning paths are a nice way to deliver content because there is the adaptive release. So it's based on, how the students perform. So learning paths are always great. Obviously, the discussion tool is a wonderful way to keep kids engaged with each other and with you. I would also say the conferencing tool is also nice. Even if you're not necessarily doing a bunch of video conferencing, you can also do text conferencing where you're all talking at once as well. The assignment tool obviously is a good tool because you can still complete group assignments. It doesn't have to be an individual assignment, so kiddos can work together on those assignments. And there's also, the peer reflection component of that assignment tool where students can interact with other students' assignments, as well as the self-reflection piece. So really every tool in its learning can be adapted to that remote learning environment.
That's great, and I do think right now is a good point for you to do a quick top level demonstration. Rachel, maybe start just overall holistically, just to orient ourselves around the
Sure.
platform, and then perhaps you show an example about the assignment.
Yeah,
There
sure.
are a few other pending questions. They tend to be in and around this topic of wanting to see the platform and also wanting to know about some of the video conferencing possibilities, which I think you've answered already. But we'll make sure that even if after the webinar, we'll circle back and make sure all of these questions are answered.
Yeah, sure. So if we kind of just take it from the opening space of a course, which is this overview page, and I mentioned in the main webinar, and I think Forsyth County mentioned it quite a bit, that the plans tool is really one of the best tools to keep everybody in lockstep with what's going on. And that's what you're seeing front and center here, that the teacher has put all of the content into a planned context so the student can walk through what that teacher has laid out for them. Also on this page is the ability for a teacher to place information about office hours, any other types of announcements that they want to highlight. So if we've gone to a completely remote learning environment, the students have everything they need here at their fingertips to do their work, to communicate with the teacher, to communicate with each other if that's what the district so desires. And then also here, as students begin to complete their work, teachers are going to start to see follow-up tasks and be able to dive right in and get into assessing those and giving those students feedback. If we go ahead over, and I'll just open up the assignment tool because I think the assignment tool is probably one of the most versatile tools in itslearning. I'm going to open up one of my plans and click Add. And you'll see when I click Add, the assignment tool is front and center because it is one of the most widely used tools in itslearning. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new assignment. And what's beautiful about the assignment tool is it can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it. So you really just need to give it a name and a description and create it, and off you go. You can do a lot more with it if you'd like, as far as peer assessment, self-assessment, you know, adding images, adding video, adding links for the students to go to, making a Google assignment or a Microsoft Office 365 assignment where you create a copy for each student and they submit that copy, adding rubrics if you'd like. But what's nice about this, when you create this assignment and the students click answer, they'll have an answer box. They have all these tools at their disposal to use to answer your assignment. So they can quickly insert an audio recording if you allow them to do so. They can quickly insert a video recording if you allow them to do so. They can simply type in an answer, or they can add document files. They can upload a video as an answer. They can upload a slideshow as an answer. So this assignment tool is probably one of the most versatile tools in itslearning. And again, be as simple or as complex as you want to make it.
All right, let's keep going here. So can I see a demo? And a feature is useful for remote lessons. Do you have suggestions for assessment activities online?
So sure. Typically, I will use the test tool for a variety of assessment opportunities. The test tool obviously can be used for a straight up quiz or test, but I also like to use it for flipped lessons or just getting a feel of things that the students might know or not know. For instance, I may embed a video, ask them to watch the video and give me some feedback on it. So the test tool itself, you can do your regular, you know, true or false questions, your fill in the blank questions, your multiple choice questions, or you can make it more of a, you know, open answer experience. The assignment tool is also excellent for assessing, you know, giving longer, more drawn out type assignments. So I would kind of focus on that test tool and that assignment tool as the way to get at those, either the student turning in a product or student practicing in some way.
Okay, great. Another one, is there a limit? Person had heard there may be a 10-person limit on video conferences.
10 people is optimal, but there is a site setting where you can take it up to 25.
Great. Another question here. Can we generate students' progress from this platform? Can we see students' progress?
Absolutely. So there's a multitude of reporting that happens in itslearning. There is a grade book that you can do your typical grading, your quizzes, your assignments, and export that to a CSV or an Excel file if need be. You also have our standard reports. So if you are aligning work to standards, you are able to then check the progress against those standards for each student or as a class. So that's always a nice piece, especially as we continue to work towards end of course testing and state testing. We want those students to have mastered those standards. We also have our wonderful 360 reports, which shows students' activity in the platform, as well as progress against what we're putting out there for them. What resources have they visited? What activities have they completed? How are they progressing through the course? And the students can be notified too from here, that they've slowed down their work, or they need to pick up the pace, they're doing a great job. So not only are these nice reporting pieces, but they're nice communication pieces between the student and the teacher.
That's great. Here's another one. This one is for the teachers. How would you suggest we take care of the teachers during remote learning? So for example, how can they connect with their peers in terms of collaborating on instructional material? How about even just socially, a digital staff room, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. So the same way that we would develop community groups for students, whether that art club or band club, we could also create virtual staff spaces for the staff to come in and talk with each other, collaborate, vent, take a mental break, and also create collaboration courses where teachers work together to create nice assignments and learning experiences for students that they can use in their courses. So It's Learning offers a variety of ways for teachers to come together, to collaborate, and to be collegial in that virtual space, however they want to set that up.
Great. Okay, we've got a couple other things, some very specific around certain capabilities in the platform. So let's hit a few of those. If a student uploads a video as part of an assignment, who can see that video?
In the assignment tool, it would be the teacher would be able to see that only, unless there is a way to set permissions where other folks can see it. But as it stands, when that student uploads that assignment, the teacher sees it.
Great. Can the attendance portion be used to document attendance when doing remote learning?
It can be, if the attendance module is turned on in your instance of It's Learning. Yes, it can be.
Okay. Let me see here. Is it possible to give half the students one assignment and the other half a different assignment?
Yes, we can do that through a tool called permissions. So each assignment has the ability to be permissioned for groups of students, for one student, for two students. So yes, that's an absolute possibility.
There is a follow-on question to the number of participants in a video conference. The person can't see where to change the setting. I think it might be best for that person to follow up with either their account manager or support.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Let me see. What else do we have here? Split resources. Okay. Attendance. I think maybe if you could spend a little bit more on this. So in terms of teacher collaboration, you did hit on a portion of that for sure around the social and the sort of the ad hoc groups and that. But what about the collaborative development of instructional content?
Sure. So if we think through, and I'll just stay right here in this course, and let's think through this as a collaboration course that teachers may be a part of. In the district that I worked in, one of the main things that I did with teachers is allow them to have these creative spaces. So if I think of this grade 3 science course, this may be the grade 3 science collaboration course where all of the grade 3 science teachers work together to create assignments, to develop resources to use with their students. And then what can happen is they would simply, let's say teacher A wanted to take Unit 1, Habitats of Georgia, and copy it into their instructional course for their students. They would simply pick their course and copy that material into their course. So they have the collaborative space to work together on assignments, resources, and then they can pull them into their instructional courses. And what I did with my teachers to kind of minimize brain drain, if you will, is have a certain teacher work on Unit 1 and another teacher work on Unit 2 and another one work on Unit 3, so they could get that collective mindset going to create the best possible experiences for kids and then just copy them over into their courses to use with their students. So it was a way to work together. It was a way to kind of lessen their load, be collaborative, be collegial still in that virtual space.
Great. Just on a point that was asked about, if someone is not fully engaged with its learning and they want to consider perhaps learning more about it, a quick way to contact us, I just sent you a link to our Contact Us page. So that is probably the most straightforward way to do just that.
Absolutely.
Just stepping through the questions here, I think you've done a great job of hitting pretty much everything here. Do assignments have an extended due date?
You can make them, well, you can give whatever due date you would like, and you can also allow that assignment to be submitted after the due date. So if you give a due date of March 27th, you can allow it to be turned in, after that. So if a student turns it in March 29th, you'll know they turned it in late, but they certainly can put it in after the deadline, or you can make an extremely long deadline if you'd like to.
Right.
And that's what I recommend for these remote learning experiences. And we learned that lesson in Forsyth, that you do want to give some flexibility around due dates, deadlines, and be flexible with the work that the students are doing, because it is a different mode of working.
Yeah. Okay, a few more here. Do we get a notification each time a student uploads an assignment?
You will know, yes, when on that follow-up and that follow-up tasks on the front, you will know when the students are submitting assignments.
Okay. Got someone asking us to outreach to them. We will certainly do that. Is it possible for students to co-write in Word? Do the teachers have to create an assignment? So I think collaboratively author using Microsoft Word.
Yes, you can. Mm-hmm.
Some more on the video conference. I think those we have, well, maybe where can I find the video conference tool?
And Tom, we may want to put on that landing page some more information about those video conferencing tools.
Yep.
And then our conferencing tool can be found under resources. When you click the add menu, it's this conference tool right here.
Yep. Okay. Is it possible to create a planner page and push to teachers, or is that within a course and pushed to teachers?
You can create a master template to apply to all teachers' courses. That has been done. Actually, Forsyth does that with the planner tool. They push a elementary planner and a secondary planner out.
Okay. Kind of an open-ended question here. What's your suggestion for hands-on projects for students?
Yeah, and this is always the tricky piece. And my experience has been, um, we utilize this task tool quite a bit down here. This task tool was developed for that very purpose. When students are doing things offline rather than delivering them online. So for instance, I might create a task whereby, an elementary student is going through their home searching for geometric shapes. And they may come into the task tool and then toggle yes that they did this, and give me a little spiel about what they did, for instance, something like that. So we also have a situation, and this happened in a culinary experience, where the culinary teacher wanted their students to do knife skills out of the school building in their home. And the students were able to do their julienne and their dicing and videotape that and then upload it to the teacher. So some of those hands-on experiences are done at home, giving a nice set of directions. Perhaps the kids video, perhaps the kids will describe what they've done at home. So lots of different ways to accommodate that hands-on learning, but that definitely is a tricky piece to do, but definitely doable in the system.
That's great. So I believe that we've gone through every outstanding question. There were a couple of very specific things where people are looking for some outreach, and we will certainly do that. We'll follow up. And just as a reminder, we will send along the recording and the slides tomorrow, and we will continue to provide information and make that available on our website and through a variety of different social channels. I want to thank you all for attending and making this a very engaging session. I really want to thank Rachel for some ad hoc demonstrations and doing a great job, a great presentation.
My pleasure.
And I think with that, we are going to wrap it up. Thank you all very much. Stay safe out there, please. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your evening.